Welcome to The Explainer. If you've ever found yourself driving through the rolling hills of southern Indiana, you get it. It's just beautiful. But today, we're going to do way more than just admire the scenery. We're actually going to break down what it would take to launch a business right in the heart of it all, in Brown County.
So that's the big question, right? Could your next big idea actually make it in a place known as America's art colony? Well, to figure that out, we're going to have to look past all the glossy tourist brochures. We're going to dig into the real numbers and see if there's a genuine, actionable business case to be made here.
All right, so here's how we're going to tackle this. We're breaking it down into 4 parts. First, we'll look at the Brown County brand. Then, we'll dive beneath the surface of the local economy. After that, we'll figure out how to find your niche. And finally, we'll talk about actually building your business.
Okay, first up, the Brown County brand. What's the big draw here? To really get a feel for the business environment, you've got to understand what makes this place tick. And it really comes down to 3 main things.
So the first, and maybe the biggest pillar, is outdoor adventure. And I mean, we are talking about a massive, nearly 16,000-acre state park. It's basically a giant playground. But it's not just big, it's a legit world-class spot for stuff like mountain biking, hiking, kayaking, you name it. This isn't just some casual walk in the woods. This place is a magnet for serious adventurers.
Okay, moving on to pillar number 2, and this is where the county gets its famous nickname, the art colony of the Midwest. And look, this isn't some new marketing gimmick. It's a reputation that's been built up for more than 100 years. We're talking about a place that's home to over 150 working artists right now, with tons of galleries and a calendar that is just packed with festivals and events.
And that brings us to the 3rd pillar. This place is a destination. People don't just pop in for an afternoon. They come for the whole experience. It's a huge spot for weddings, for corporate getaways, for all kinds of festivals. And there's this whole ecosystem built to support that. Hundreds of unique shops, a booming craft beverage scene, and get this, nearly 200 cabins, not to mention all the inns and B&Bs.
So, what happens when you add all that up? You get this number, 2 million. 2 million visitors every single year. Now, let that sink in for a second, because the county's permanent population is less than 16,000 people. That is just a staggering amount of foot traffic. But what does that actually mean? What's the impact on the ground for the county, and more importantly for someone thinking about starting a business there?
Well, this quote from the county sheriff, Brad Stogsdale, really nails it. He says they're set up for 16,000 people, but when everyone shows up, everything is taxed to the max. And that, right there, is the central conflict of doing business in Brown County. You've got this incredible opportunity on one hand and this massive strain on the other.
Right, so that tension leads us to our next section. What's really going on beneath the surface with the local economy? Because if you want to find a truly great business idea, you can't just look at the tourists. You have to understand the pressures and the realities for the folks who call this place home year-round.
Okay, so here's a huge assumption a lot of people make, and the data just blows it out of the water. The assumption is that tourism is everything, that it's the whole economy. But the reality? Whoa. The taxable income from permanent residents is over $500 million. That completely dwarfs the gross income from tourism. And what that tells you is, there is a powerful, stable, and often totally overlooked local economy right there.
And here's a major side effect of all that popularity. Just look at the housing market. The cost of living is absolutely skyrocketing. A median home in Brown County is over $500,000 now. That's way above the national average. And check out that note. Prices are up over 62% in just 1 year. That's wild. Now, sure, that's a huge challenge, but it also tells you something really important about the people who live there. They've got money.
And all of this brings us right back to that core problem we talked about. You've got rising costs, you've got strained services, and that leads to this big ongoing debate. Who's going to pay for all of it? You see things like proposals to raise the tax on hotel stays or hike up the fees to get into the state park. And what that really is, it's an attempt to make the tourists help pay for the police, the roads, and everything else they use when they visit.
Okay, so we've got the huge strengths of the brand on one side and these real economic pressures on the other. For any entrepreneur, that gap, right in the middle, that's where the opportunity is. So let's go find your niche.
All right, let's start with a really telling number, 34.4 minutes. What is that? That's the average one-way commute for someone who lives in Brown County. Think about what that means. Every single day, a huge chunk of the population is getting in their cars and driving out of the county to work, probably to Bloomington or Columbus or even Indy.
But at the exact same time, check this out. The county's own redevelopment commission is actively trying to stop that from happening. Their official goal is to embrace clean, green, light industry. Basically, they want to create more good jobs inside the county so people don't have to leave.
So when you put all those pieces together, a picture starts to form, right? You've got this super stable, pretty well-off population. I mean, the home ownership rate is almost 86%. They're spending a ton of time commuting, and what that screams is underserved market. There's this massive need for local stuff. Things like, I don't know, a cool co-working space, a really good grocery store or restaurant, or even high-end home services for all those expensive houses.
All right, so we've done the analysis, we've spotted the niche. The big question now is, how do you actually turn all this into a real-life business? Let's map out a blueprint.
So here are just a few ideas that plug right into those gaps we found. A boutique co-working space that tackles the commute problem head-on. A gourmet market, perfect for locals who want something more than the usual tourist food. How about an adventure gear shop? You're directly supporting that #1 tourism driver. Or high-end property management for all those valuable homes. See the pattern here? The really smart play is a business that serves both the tourists and the locals.
Okay, so if you're actually thinking about doing this, here's your homework. Step 1, you have to go there. But don't just go once. You need to see the absolute madness of October and then see how different it is in, say, February. Step 2, get off the main drag. Talk to the business owners who aren't just serving tourists. Step 3, dig into that housing data yourself. And finally, read the county's own strategic plans. See where they want to go.
So when you boil it all down, the takeaway is this. The biggest opportunity in Brown County probably isn't opening another t-shirt shop or fudge factory. It's about finding that perfect balance. The real challenge, and honestly the biggest potential reward, is to build something that bridges that gap. A business that can tap into the energy of those 2 million visitors, but also genuinely supports the locals and makes the whole community stronger. And that is the real business case for Brown County.